Week 17 is right around the corner. We've got plenty of storylines to talk about here today as this 2025 season wraps up on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. I want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Here on the Locked On Network, today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, place your NFL live bets all season long. Special thank you to each and every one of you who have helped to make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And it is the holiday season. I come bearing gifts in the way of a 4-round mock draft, bearing gifts in the way of a prediction for the fate of the 10 most expensive players on the roster for 2026, a gift in the way of talking about this ridiculous Lamar Jackson story that came out and the subsequent wish casting and hypotheticals of Lamar. If you missed it, if you don't read the Baltimore Sun, one of the beat writers on the Baltimore Sun put out a story about Lamar Jackson and talking about how maybe the Ravens should consider moving on from Lamar Jackson, and Miami was name dropped as a place that he'd love to play for. And it got everybody's gears turning throughout the course of this week. We're going to talk about that as well and why I don't think there is a snowball's chance in South Florida that we could see something like that, at least in 2026. We'll get into it. But I want to start with a few odds and ends before we get into a 4-round mock draft that I did for A to Z Sports. It dropped this morning around some players in the trenches. Some major updates for the Dolphins and Bucs Week 17 game. Aaron Brewer is going to practice today. That, in and of itself, is progress because Aaron Brewer did not practice the first 2 days this week. Aaron is dealing with a neck issue. I believe he started close to 60 consecutive games in the NFL. The Dolphins' best offensive lineman, sensational player, massive matchup this week, literally and figuratively, with Vita Vea. Huge for the implications of the Dolphins having offensive success and to get an accurate snapshot of Quinn Ewers and his execution in his second start, to have or not have potentially Aaron Brewer in the lineup. So Mike McDaniel said on Friday he's going to practice today, and they're going to let the next 48 hours and how he responds after that practice dictate whether or not he plays in the game. If it's not Aaron Brewer, I would expect, based off what McDaniel said on Friday, we may see Andrew Meyer. Sounds like he's going to get activated for the game, put on the 53-man roster. He's been designated for return from IR all season long, right? He had some kind of elbow issue. He's back. He's been practicing. Sounds like they're going to put him on the 53. It's the kind of player you should absolutely want to get eyeballs on in real game time action. Now, maybe not against Vita Vea, but Vea is a monster. Vea is quickness of a 3 technique, size of a true nose tackle, very special physical talent player. It's a tough assignment, especially if it be your first NFL game action for Andrew Meyer. So I'm hoping we see Aaron Brewer. I think that'd be a really fun matchup. But if it's not, it sounds like Meyer will have a chance to go. And it's the kind of player who, right, he was an undrafted rookie last year, made the 53. Spent this year on IR up until now. It's the kind of player when we talk about in our second segment today, cash commitments in 2026. Who are the big dollars? So, what's your strip down on the cash spending look like? Because we're going into that transition, right? Like the last 3 years, our rank in NFL cash spending has been lower. We were 5th, and then we're 9th, and now we're 10th this year. And right now for 2026, we're scheduled to be 12th. So what does that continued process look like? And they need to offload a lot more cash commitments, right? And there's a couple easy ways to do that. We'll talk about that. But the guys who you can get on the 53 who you think can play that are on the books for $1 million, those are big hits for you. That's why rookie contracts matter, because they're cost controlled, right? On the other side, Tristan Wirfs is not going to go per Todd Bowles. So a backup tackle opportunity for Bradley Chubb. I think he's 1.5 sacks away from another $900,000 incentive bonus. Would love to see Bradley get it. Especially, he played ball with the Dolphins. He negotiated down his he cut his salary almost in half this season and put it into performance incentives for games that you dress and are healthy for, playtime incentives, sack incentives. There's a future roster bonus in 2027 that's like attainable for him to help get some more of that money back. He played ball, and he's been the Dolphins' best edge player, but he's been quiet the last month or so. When Jalen Phillips gets traded, Chubb has 10 pressures against the Bills. He was outstanding in that game. Really haven't seen that player with much consistency since that game, especially the last month. It's been quiet. So a big backup tackle spot. I mean, that's the Bucs offensive line has already been banged up. And now they're coming into this game without Tristan Wirfs. I mean, I'm pulling up the R-Lads depth chart. I want to make sure I'm speaking from a place of intelligence. That's going to be Benjamin Chukwuma, an undrafted rookie, is going to start at left tackle. Michael Jordan is going to start. Not that Michael Jordan is going to start at guard. And I'm sure Michael Jordan's probably so fed up with it, right? Like every time his name's come up, we've heard that joke. Graham Barton at center. Dan Feeney. You remember Dan Feeney? Dan Feeney's going to start at right guard. And then Luke Goedeke at right tackle. So this is a group that's really banged up. They got backups in three out of 5 spots with a not super healthy Baker Mayfield. It's a huge spot for the Dolphins defensive tackles and for Bradley Chubb. It's a big show-up spot. I want to see how they show up. So there's your odds and ends. Also, Isaiah Johnson, Dolphins corner, tore his ACL at practice this week. He's obviously done for the rest of the season, and that sucks. I really liked Isaiah. He was another one of those undrafted rookies from 24. Was on the practice squad, got elevated, had special teams role, got a little banged up, and then went down with a major injury in practice. So that's going to probably leak into his 2026 season now that we're last week in December and you go down with an injury. It sucks. So thoughts to Isaiah Johnson. Hope he's healthy ASAP. And now I've talked like 5 minutes longer than I thought I was going to. This is what happens when I record on a Wednesday morning was the last time I recorded, and then we were away from the mic all day yesterday. I was doing presents under the tree, this, that, the other thing. Some cooking. We cooked for the holiday. I hope everybody who celebrates had a great Christmas. I know I certainly did with my family, but I'm excited to be back on the mic. Talk a little Dolphins football. We only have 2 more regular season games left, and then a big offseason. We're going to talk a lot about this offseason in our coming 2 segments here on the show, starting with a 4-round mock draft. I'll go to break and then come back and get that on the other side. Make sure you guys stick with us. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. It's what makes betting live with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds for every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, when someone gets hot, defense makes a big stand, or momentum flips after a turnover. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly on FanDuel. Player props update as guys heat up, so you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com to place your NFL live bets all season long with FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. There's one more chance this year to get down to Hard Rock Stadium, check out a game. There's nothing like being at the game. The energy, cheering on the Dolphins or any of your favorite teams alongside the rest of the fan base. Watching at home is great, but being in the arena feels different. Frustrating part can be getting tickets, though. Waiting in queues, dealing with logins, watching prices change right before checkout. So I can check out Game Time. It gives the advantage back to the fans. It's a hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You can pull up the Game Time app, check out upcoming NFL games, like Bucks, Dolphins, and find great ticket options almost instantly. The app is incredibly intuitive, so browsing, comparing, and buying tickets took just minutes on my last purchase on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use Locked On NFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Get back to being there live. I learned my lesson last time because the last time I did a mock draft here on the show, I think it was 2 weeks ago on a Friday. I'm going to try to do a multi-round mock draft every other week. And I put it at the very end. And then I think I had looked up and I was at like 29 minutes. And I've got a hard out at 33 minutes here on the program. So anything longer than 33, it can't get run on some of our syndication outlets. And I get a slap on the wrist. I don't want to get a slap on the wrist here. So we're going to put the mock draft technically we're already behind schedule. It's supposed to be in segment 1, and then we had odds and ends, and Mike McDaniel just talked by the time I'm recording this. So now the start of segment 2, a 4-round Dolphins mock draft. Here's what I chose to do with it. The Dolphins currently have picks 11, 44, 75, 86, 87, and 112 in the first 4 rounds. They also have 150 and 227. 8 picks, 5 of them in the top 90, 7 of them in the top 150. 2 thumbs up for this guy, big draft guy, right? And that was out of necessity because of the Dolphins when I was growing up. I became a big draft guy because of the Dolphins. So when you look at who is projected to be available with these picks for the Dolphins, I think my thought process for this draft, you can go any number of different ways. We kind of went into exploring trading up and what that could potentially look like for the Dolphins and the assets that's required to make a leap like that. And I'm personally not super comfortable with that. It would not be my preferred avenue to pursue. If they chose to do it, we talk about, okay, this is what's going to have to look like to be successful. But I would much rather take these picks and stock up this roster and find an avenue to bet on some long-term ceiling with some level of a floor at quarterback. And I think this can be an offseason where you can leave no stone unturned, where you could sign somebody in free agency. You could draft another quarterback, and you can roll back Quinn Ewers, and you could say, look, and I'm operating the assumption that Tua Tagovailoa is not going to be in the roster next year. Say, okay, let's get a free agent, and we're not talking about break the bank, go out and get a $40 million a year player at quarterback. But somebody who's young, somebody who's shown some tools, somebody who's worked in a system that has some parallels to what Miami may run. And of course, we need to figure out what offensive and defensive systems we're running in Miami. But if you look at what the needs on the roster are, opportunities to just add talent to the roster, I think there's a way in which you can go about doing that and adding players to the rooms that you have with the existing talent that you have that can position you for success in some ways, no matter who's your head coach, no matter who's your offensive coordinator, no matter who's your defensive coordinator. So with that in mind, pick number 11, offensive line plan is going to start to show here. Francis Mauigoa, University of Miami, I think there's going to be debate whether he's a guard or a tackle. He's going to be a popular mock draft for me no matter what. First of all, familiar with success in playing in South Florida, the conditioning element of it. I love the play demeanor which he has. And I think you've got questions at both right guard and right tackle. And we're going to get to both of those players when talking about the Dolphins' cash commitments and what's guaranteed and what's not. But Mauigoa is somebody who I think brings a play demeanor that falls in line with what Savaianaya you're hoping develops into and what Patrick Paul has shown in increasingly greater flashes. And it's still a little bit up and down, but he's a first-year full-time starter. And you pair that with what you have with Brewers, hopefully a extension candidate, you're all of a sudden looking at 4/5 of your offensive line. If Mauigoa is who you think he's capable of being, that you feel like you've got a really strong nucleus and foundation. And that's something you can press play with moving forward. I picked number 44. I went with McNeil-Warren from Toledo. He is a safety, a long safety. Got good ball skills, got great length, got good tackling ability, very dynamic player. So they need to make a decision one way or another on Minka Fitzpatrick, who's been at his best this season in the nickel. Dante Trader is also somebody who I think has been best in the nickel. I think he's a little bit less dynamic to play on the back end. I know Mike McDaniel was very complimentary today, asked about Trader with his play speed relative to his time speed. And I think that's fair. I think he sees things faster than a rookie does. But you're looking for some dynamic play on the back end to help kind of manufacture takeaways. And I think a big difference with like Ashton Davis is Ashton Davis has dynamic athleticism and speed, but he doesn't have ideal length. He doesn't have like rare size. He doesn't have that tackling prowess either that you see from McNeil-Warren. And if you're worried about like being a top 50 pick from Toledo, let's not forget this is the same secondary that put out Quinyon Mitchell not that long ago, and he's one of the best young corners in football, was drafted in the 20s by the Eagles. Let's not forget Darius Alexander, a defensive tackle from this exact same defensive scheme, was a top 100 pick last year as well and has started to come on in his own right. So McNeil-Warren is, I think, a player that's going to continue to rise. I think he's a player Dolphins fans should know for what the Dolphins have done with Iafitu Melifonwu. And I think if you want to have that same type of archetype of player, but maybe with a greater ceiling to grow into, where Melifonwu kind of is what he is at this stage of his NFL career, I think McNeil-Warren's a great dynamic player to add into that safety room. And now all of a sudden, if you bring back Minka, who's under contract, but if you bring him back on an extension or if you keep him on the roster on his current deal, and you've got Minka, you've got Trader, and you've got McNeil-Warren, I think you probably get like a veteran safety 3 in free agency to play some teams. You could probably call that room a day if you were to get a player like this. So I think that would give you a really strong foundation with your 2 top 50 picks of finalizing the vast majority of your offensive line room. You still need to figure out who your 5th starter would be. You could bring back one of either of the 2 names that are under contract that we haven't seen that much of this year in Jackson and Daniels. But then also you can kind of check the box on your safety room, and you've got longevity with the 2 guys in Trader and McNeil-Warren. Kind of you can have a dynamic player, and then you can have kind of a nickel safety split field player to give you a little bit of, you can buzz either one of those guys down into the box. 75 overall is a player I think, if it weren't for his age, would not be in this stratosphere of the draft that he's talked about. And it's a guy that Canes fans will know quite well, Akeem Mesidor. He's going to be a 25-year-old rookie. All season is rookie season. He's going to turn 25 the same month as the draft in April. So he's an older player. He doesn't have like ideal length, but man, he's dense. He's powerful. He's developed as you would hope an older prospect would be. I think that clears a pretty clear path for him to be a positive contributor to a pass rush group very early on as a rookie. Dolphins are going to need to build up this edge rush room from scratch. That's going to be a combination of veteran guys, probably cheap flyers on guys that didn't work out in other places, and a draft pick or 2. I got Mesidor. So 2 out of your first 3 in the trenches. We'll come back for the pick at 86. Mesidor was the pick at 75. Pick at 86 is a corner. It's another long corner because the Dolphins cornerback room is Juju Brent, Storm Duck, Isaiah Johnson, Jason Maitre, and Jason Marshall. Right? Those are the players who are under contract for the Dolphins in the quarterback room. Can't happen. Now, whether that's bringing back Rasul Douglas, whether that's bringing back Jack Jones, whether that's bringing back both of them, whether that's bringing back Kader Kohu, like we need more out of this group and not just a few more pieces. Will Lee III from Texas A&M, 6'3", 195. And what I like about Lee, aside of the length, is he's transferred up from JUCO to Kansas State and then Texas A&M, and he's leveled up multiple times in his college career, and he's thrived each time. Now, these tall corners, you kind of know what the book is on these tall corners. Like sometimes they're not the most quick footed. Sometimes their transitions take a little bit longer. Sometimes they got to work on the efficiency of their pedal, or maybe they play in a half turn or like whatever. Transitionally, usually those guys don't shine in space. And if you're not super physical, well, then that could be an area to grow. Otherwise, you're going to play a little high. You're not going to have great transitions. And if you don't play with the physicality that you need to disrupt route timing, sometimes it can be a test for you. I think he's a great developmental big corner, Will Lee from Texas A&M. I have 2 more picks, and they're both going to be on the same team. Not the Dolphins either. They're the same college team. 87 overall. I took Michael Trigg, a tight end from Baylor. Massive hands, massive catch radius. It's like 6'4", 240, flex tight end type. Like maybe the Dolphins, whoever runs the team as the GM, brings back Darren Waller on another 1-year deal. But even if they do, like having some insurance from a receiving tight end skill set, and maybe Greg Dulcich will be that. But I want more competition in this room, and I want to have more long-term options with receiving profile upside, right? Like you're blocking players, whether that's a 6th offensive lineman or Julian Hill, who's a restricted free agent after the year, and you could choose to bring him back. You're going to have a chance to get the blocking element down. It should not be too challenging. Now, the role that you give that tight end in your offense, depending on if it's Mike McDaniel or somebody else, could be a moving target, right? Like that can be hard. They're going to want to ask you to block on the move and play in space and get out on the edges and this, that, and the other thing. But just a receiving weapon with length, strong hands, great concentration, a large catch radius, straight line athleticism. Triggs got all that. I think he's a really intriguing player. I got a quarterback at 112. We're going to talk about him and some of this other stuff I have as I come bearing gifts on this Friday episode of Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. This episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. There's bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, all happening at the same time. While we're making choices every day, the most fun place to make the right call is on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play daily fantasy. You can pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you are in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including the state of Florida. Prize Picks has an extra layer of excitement for the holiday season. You could add stacks. You pick the same player up to 3 times in one lineup, like more on Devon Achane receptions, rushing touchdowns, and rushing yards, for example. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. I'm a little rattled because I fear I may have bit off more than I could chew. I got 10 minutes. So I'll introduce you to the pick at 112 in this 4-round mock draft. Sawyer Robertson, quarterback from Baylor, is a former 4-star recruit. His dad was drafted in the 1st round by the Expos. His cousin is Jarrett Stidham, so like very athletic, physically gifted throwers in the family. 4-star recruit in his own right. He initially went to Mississippi State, transfers to Baylor. He's got close to 60 passing touchdowns and over 6,500 passing yards the last 2 seasons at Baylor. Tall, big arm, athletic enough. Toolsy, not refined, but toolsy. And I think for the Dolphins right now, I think my preferred plan is targeting an upside player in free agency, Quinn Ewers, and somebody else via the draft at any variable amount of draft capital to invest. And whether that's a 2nd-round pick, whether that's preferably not trading up in the 1st round, but if somebody falls to you in the 1st round, if that's moving up on day 2, if that's going very early on. Kind of my school of thought with these picks was I want players that I feel like can be immediate contributors and difference makers with the early picks. Then you get into the 3rd round with the 3 third-round picks, and it's like, okay, like let's kind of think about the lens of developmental starter types. And then you get to round 4, and realistically, what's the ROI on 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th-round picks, right? It's drastically small. So if I want to take some hacks and I want to take some swings and I want to bet on some traits, That's the range of the draft where I think it's probably appropriate to do it. So Sawyer Robertson, pick of 112. That gives us a full 4-round draft class of Francis Mauigoa at number 11, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, safety from Toledo at 44, Canes edge rusher Akeem Mesidor at 75, Aggies cornerback Will Lee III at 86, Baylor tight end Michael Trigg at 87, and Baylor quarterback Sawyer Robertson at 112. So that's the mock draft. Dolphins top 10 players in cash owed to them in 2026. Not cap commitments, but new cash, because new cash is what dictates a portion of your cap, but then also can be implicated into future years of cap if you prorate the money and spread it out over several years. There's a concept in NFL spending. It's called cash over cap. A lot of teams like to spend more cash on any given year than the salary cap because you can defer into future years portions of the cap payment, and the cap grows every year. So you could spend more aggressively than the cap, use the tools at your disposal to spread it out over several years, and then that way your budget and payroll isn't just locked in at the salary cap's $300 million, so we can spend $300 million. Some teams last year spent like $360. The Vikings spent $360 million. It's probably a little aggressive. Probably want some of those back. But nevertheless, that's the risk you take. And that's what the Dolphins did since 2019, right? They were dead last in the NFL in cash spending in 2019. They've been top 12 every other year since. 4 out of those 5 years, they've been top 10. They peaked in 24. They were 5th. They're on the downslope. They're going to need to offload some cash for future year salary cap health. Here's the challenge. Here's the top 10 players, and the top 7 of them are making at least $10 million next year. Tua Tagovailoa, $55 million. 54 of it is guaranteed fully. Tyreek Hill, $36 million. None of that is guaranteed as of right now. File that away. Bradley Chubb, $20.23 million. None of that right now is guaranteed. Jalen Waddle, $17.2 million. 6.6 of it is fully guaranteed. Zach Sealer, $16 million. The whole thing, 100% of it is fully guaranteed. Minka Fitzpatrick, 15.6. None of it is guaranteed. And Austin Jackson, 11.5. None of it is guaranteed. As of right now. He has a $1 million roster bonus that's due the third day of the league year in March. Those are the 7 players above $10 million. You then also have Jordan Brooks, James Daniels, and Aaron Brewer all making between $7 and $8.5 million in cash. Not cap commitments, cash. So what do the Dolphins do with this group, right? I mean, they've already started the downswing, but you need to accelerate it, and then you need to have a year where you're not super aggressive in free agency, and you're not dropping $20 million for this guy and $15 million for that guy and $12 million for this guy and $18 million for that guy, right? Like, you can't have that kind of year. It needs to be about kind of similar to what they did in free agency this year. You can choose your spots with a couple of guys. And between Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb alone, you can free up $56 million in cash spending. And if you took those 2 players, and obviously you have to get the 51-player offseason roster, right? They don't have 51 players under contract this offseason. But if you cleared up those 2 players and you cleared up $56 million, the Dolphins would drop into the bottom 8 in the NFL in cash spending, and that includes the fully guaranteed salaries for Tua Tagovailoa. And I don't think predictively, I don't think Tua is going to be on the roster. So you're going to have $54 million of salary that's paid out to a player who's not even on the roster, which makes the fact that you can save the 36 from Tyreek, that you could save the 20 from Bradley Chubb, that you could potentially save the 15 from Minka Fitzpatrick. I would keep Minka Fitzpatrick. But you have to put it in the conversation and say, look, I could save about $66 million from those 3 players. Austin Jackson has 11.5. None of it is guaranteed this year. Jordan Brooks has none guaranteed, but he ain't going anywhere. At least he better not. Or I will riot. James Daniels has $7.87 million. None of it is guaranteed. Half of it guarantees on the third day of the league year in March. They could pull the plug and say, hey, sunk cost. We're going to move on. Aaron Brewer's got 7. None of it's guaranteed, but you want a contract extension there, right? So what I would say is the Tua thing, regardless, I think your your cash situation and needing to cut cash spending as the cap goes up, it's automatically going to help. If you stay the same and the cap goes up, you're not spending as much against the cap. But then if you proactively cut the salary and the payroll by a couple tens of millions of dollars, that's where you can accelerate kind of that evening out of the scales to then have a healthy cap balance to use moving forward. I think it needs to be Tyreek Hill, probably Bradley Chubb, unless he's willing to negotiate like he did this past year. If he's willing to do something else like that again, I'd sit down and I would hear that out to keep Bradley Chubb just because of the amount of other work that has to be done on the edge room. If you tell me you can bring Bradley Chubb back and we can cut his salary in half like we did last year and put some of it into incentives, I'd be willing to listen. I'd be willing to listen for sure. But Tyreek, 36 mil, I don't think there's a lot to talk about there. That one's got to go. $16 million of it guarantees on the third day of the league year. I would say for the Dolphins, a healthy goal, knowing that you're going to have to sign some players in free agency, knowing that you're going to have the Tua contract no matter what on your books that you have to reconcile is probably a good way to put it. I'd say probably 60 to 75 million probably cut off, because then that allows you to spend back up and fill up the roster, and then you're still going to save a sizable chunk that will help you from a cap outlook. But I think the players to know, because they don't have any guarantees left on their contract, is Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Austin Jackson, James Daniels. Those are the guys that are on watch for me, and I would guess half of them are gone, if not more of them, depending on how aggressive they want to be. Real quick backdrop on this Lamar Jackson thing. The report came out from the Baltimore Sun. Lamar would be interested in playing for the Dolphins. The Ravens would be wise to look into moving on. He wants a new contract. He's going to be 29. He's getting banged up. He's not doing the things he needs to do off the field to put himself in best position to be successful. The Ravens have a double standard for him versus everybody else. It's all in the Baltimore Sun piece. And I'm not really going to get into the here, there, and the now of what was reported, but Dolphins fans went nuts. Lamar wants to play for Miami. Well, yeah, he's from South Florida, right? This is home. And he puts on a show pretty much every time he comes here, unless you include that Thursday game from 2021, right? Here's the problem. If the Ravens move Lamar this offseason, you have $54 million for Tua Tagovailoa that you're going to pay no matter what, unless you get somebody else to take the contract. And if you got somebody else to take, even if they took the whole contract, you're probably going to have to include draft picks to go with it, which would probably include a first-round pick to offload $54 million in guarantees and $55 million in total compensation. And if you send those kind of premium assets with Tua to offload the cash so that you can bring in Lamar when he's owed $51 million and wants a new contract, what are you not going to have to help get the deal done? The picks to make it happen. So, maybe if this saga plays out for another year and the Baltimore gets to 2027 and they start asking these questions and the Dolphins invest in the rest of the roster and they don't go crazy quarterback, maybe in 2027 you could look at it and make an argument. But you can't carry 54 for Tua and then 51 for Lamar and have $105 million in payroll for two quarterbacks, one of which isn't even on the team. So everybody went crazy about it. Put it on the back burner. Let's circle back in 12 months and see what Baltimore looks like with Lamar. That's going to do it for us here today on the show. Kyle Krabs, keep it locked in. Right here, Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. I'm out of here. Go Fins.